Now, what's good is, I'd never do a generic point. I always do have an angle for it. So my angle's actually going to be quite a unique one. Spoiler, I am going to be absolutely leaning into the Thorin wheelhouse. We're about to, Alan, wax lyrical about how brilliant device is. So, you know.
Okay, I'm ready.
Fucking hell, dust off the old tome and go to chapter 700. But there's a way that we're going to do it, though. Because actually, the thing I want to highlight is this, right? I'm not going to get overhyped. He isn't actually like the best AWPer in the world again, guys. Even when he has an awesome game, I don't do that thing like he's back. He's like, he is really good again. But the point I want to make is this, mate, it's the way he plays within his game that I think is, I've never seen anyone do this, mate. I've never seen any star player do this. The problem normally with star players is they are so fucking all in. They are so like, I am the best player. Like, I'm better than my opponent. Like, give me all the resources and I'll carry this game. The thing about device that is crazy is unlike, and by the way, this is the other thing, he plays AWPer. I think it's even less likely that you get the player like this for an AWPer. If you think of my old mates, Kenny S and Guardian, by the way, goats of the fucking AWPing position, their problem is if they aren't not only the best on their team, but probably the best AWPer in the server, their game already starts to suffer. And if they're ever like in bad form, they have no game, like, because they try to play like they're the best player and it doesn't work. And they can actually, like Guardian did at the end, they can become a liability. They can actually sort of feed in the game. It's not even like they're just doing like, oh, they're only 70% as good. No, they're actually actively the person giving the game away. Mate, the way Device plays now, he doesn't play like he thinks he's 2018 prime Device and he's back. He plays so within his game, it is mega, mate. So it means when he has these games where they're getting smashed or he's just not in the game, he's almost never a liability. And then when he has the game where he's feeling it, it's going well, then he does pop off. Then he does get like I can't comprehend the efficiency of this player. I think it's actually, like I say, for a star player and someone who does put up numbers, I think it's incredible. This is like a thing I would tell all young stars out there. If you can gain this quality, you can gain like essentially the discipline to know how to play when you're not on your A game. This is how you have a 10-year career, by the way, as like a star player with the other guys are really going to have to go to tier 2 or they're going to have to fuck off and play some supportive role. So I don't know if Device will ever be like the best player again at that level. He doesn't need to be though, mate, because he's actually sort of mastered how it seems like I get the sense he has the best sense himself as the game's going on of how the game is. He seems very reflective in that. So mad props, because like I say, I've known a lot of great players and almost none of them had this sort of like wherewithal to know like I'm good, but I'm not better. Like most of them, they're all delusional or they're just fucking the confidence is destroyed. There's no in between for a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, you compare this to, for me, Fallen on Furia right now, and the amount of times I see him in a position where it is all in, and if he misses the shot, he is 100% dead. It's very regular, and it's actually a lot of the thing is like, when I was watching Fallen, especially during this last week of VSL Pro League, it's like he pops off with these crazy multi-frag highlight rounds, but it's because he just puts himself so actively in a chaotic situation. But then watching Device in that same week, it does look more boring. It's not as quite as exciting. He did have he actually had a really nice pop-off round against NIP on Inferno, but like there's he doesn't have to come up with that as much because he's just finding safer shots. He's taking shots that, like you're saying, are more in the flow of the game. He's reading offenses so that he can, on the defense, very frequently just get that singular pick, and like he'll sometimes do something a little bit risky. Like sometimes he'll like actually peek into a molly because he knows that molly indicates that they're probably expecting it to cover an angle, so he'll take that extra 30 points of damage, and sometimes it doesn't get him the kill, but at least he creates opportunities for himself that are pretty safe overall, and oftentimes actually give him some chances, whereas other people might respect the utility too much. And so, yeah, I think like for Device, I will say his mechanics are still pretty damn good.
Oh, he's still mega. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like he's fallen off completely and that he can be like it's almost like with Device, if you did put an AWPer with 80% of his mechanics though in some of these positions, they actually would still do very well. And I think that's generally what's so impressive. Whereas Fallen, because his mechanics have fallen off, say that 80%, now you're seeing an AWPer that's putting up these 1.00 ratings in a whole group stage against not even strong opponents, whereas if this were Fallen of 5 years ago, yeah, he'd have a 1.12 or whatever, but he's playing the exact same way as if he's the same player. So Device showing that longevity comes from having really good reads of how to play the game and how to move around it.
By the way, quick disclaimer before Alan jumps in. Alan is one of the rare people, I respect this though, who actually has Device as his GOAT. Just thought I'd let you know. Go on then.
This is, well, to explain why it goes beyond just achievements. It's also having been in and around quite a lot of teams, kind of the ease to play around somebody is a factor for me.
Right.
Or like how much value they bring. If I truly felt someone like Glaive had by virtue of his calling won Astralis all those majors, I would have Glaive as the best player. But for Device, I just feel like he's such a complete player. He brings so much to the game. Imagine being someone setting up a team around Device. It's almost like he's the perfect middle ground in terms of passive and aggressive and how much space he wants. He's just the AWPer. You don't have to make special concessions. It's not like having a simple on your team and he does justify a lot of the time, but you have to give him a lot of space. Device finds the middle ground perfectly. He's always been the best player at playing the percentages, how I like to say it is. He always makes the highest percentage decision, and we know from over the years he puts a lot of work in behind the scenes. That's how you build up these fundamentals. It's how you understand the game to a level where you can be in a situation on the fly and say, this is the best way to win this sort of round. And then looking at other AWPers, we know some of them weren't as studious. Kenny S, we know he wasn't, as putting in nearly as much effort outside of the server. And that's almost certainly the number one reason Kenny S has not had the longevity that Device has. Even if Kenny S, he might be a more skilled player. He might have more natural talent at actually just using a mouse. But Device is a much more well-rounded person and just brings so much value to the game. So I'm not surprised he's still in great form. I'm not even sure he's dropped off mechanically. I think it just is players of ZywOo, Simple, Munazy, just the sheer mechanical ability is they're just phenoms. That's how good they are in terms of being individuals. So I'm not sure Device has necessarily got any worse. Obviously, maybe just versus the field, he's got a little bit down, but it's just because these players have just innate ability have come up through the rankings that I think he comes off a bit. I think an interesting angle as well with Device is that obviously kind of Shiro and James come through as some of the best AWPers in the world over the last couple of years. Maybe not so much for James now, but even so, these players almost certainly fully modeled their game off Device.
Yes.
They probably took it a little bit too far. Shiro and James saves more, but they're pretty similar actually in terms of how they like to play passive angles and how they like to sit on lines and really take their time. I think Device is a little bit of a better feel of when to get more aggressive to grab an opportunity than maybe those players do. So yeah, I think Device for every young player should be the model. You break the rules like a ZywOo, like a Simple, if you have that sheer mechanical talent where you can bail yourself out a lot of the time. But for the vast majority of players, you need to play like Device. You need to be studious like Device. You need to understand the game to that sort of level. And just making good, consistent decisions, it might not be as exciting to watch. Well, not for the average person. For me, it is. I love it a lot more than just wild Counter-Strike. But that should be the model for all players. Playing the percentages, and Device is almost certainly the best ever at doing that.
See, the downside here is I just thought up a great straight-fire follow-up point, but it's too good, so I've just written it down for hot take point made. Thanks, Alan. Thanks for generating that. Don't worry, you'll hear it on a future show, but I'm not going to burn it here, am I? So what I will just say very briefly is, the one thing that I also think is hilarious is this just shows how people's expectations determine if they rave about you or if they're just like, yeah, he's just good. Because, now every ZywOo fan can't shut the fuck up about how incredible it is that ZywOo uses a rifle. You're only about fucking 6 years too late, you moron. Device was doing that when they were winning everything. This is the guy because they're trying to big up this angle of you sacrifice. Mate, you think Device couldn't have just told them when they were winning everything, I want to AWP on T-side of Infinite? Of course he could, but he just understood that his coach and IGL are going to have so many more weapons if he can rifle as well. And also that means the rounds that you don't have an AWP, you don't have to save the AWP and you just use a rifle. That's the angle. I can see Alan's angle there. It's also it's not just a raw eye test, it's a coaching aspect as well. Basically, if you had to take these all-time great players, right, look, you could drop Simple in a team and he'd frag, but the question is how would he affect his teammates? It does look to me, I said this years ago about Device, it does look like here's the coach's dream. I'm pretty sure every coach, if they had the choice, this is the AWPer you build your team around. As long as I'm getting other really great players too. If I have this AWPer, I'm fucking safe as houses, mate. I almost can't fail to make my lineup really sick. And I also do get the vibe, if you look at their careers, people used to do that thing of like chicken and egg. Like, is it Glaive? Is it Device? Like, I'm sorry, I've never thought like Glaive was telling Device what to do, or like before the game. He wasn't like fucking Blade handing him a dossier, like, here's what you're going to do. It's quite obvious it was the other way around. That actually all that was off Glaive's plate and Zonic's plate, and Device is just doing it himself because he studied the game and prepped for the opponent. And actually, that is your dream if you're the IGL, that you have a mobile AWP who's going to take his own angles and play however accordingly. And then if you ask him to do something, he might do it. Like, what more do you want? And then he puts up the numbers. Like, it's why it's funny that in the end, like, I've never said this. I'm not one of those guys who do, like, even though I like the coach quotes, I'm not someone who believes that they're like from God and they're all like facts. They're more just like interesting observations. But like, to me, I would say if you're a young player, Device is the one who embodies that quote that says, like, you know, essentially, if you don't change the game won't shortchange you. Because this guy played the right way for now, like we're talking like, what, like fucking 10 years or something. At the end, he got all the accomplishments. Like, that's actually what you want every young player to believe. Like, look, you don't actually have to be flashier than simple. If you just play the right way to the max of your ability, we actually might be able to get you more accomplishments than simple. We can get you all the trophies and the MVPs. Like, that's sick if you're a young player. That's exactly who you want to look up to. The joke is that if I'm a young AWPer, yeah, obviously your mind's blown by what simple is. I'd have the Device poster on my wall, mate. That's who I want to be.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.